Oh, Capcom. Sweet, sweet Capcom. You're such a divisive company. For every awesome, unforgettable title like Mega Man, Devil May Cry, or Resident Evil, you seem to have a game everyone hates, like Mega Man, Devil May Cry, or Resident Evil. Then again, a few of your controversial titles tend to not be so bad, like Mega Man, Devil May Cry, or Resident Evil. It's like they're the Sega of game developers. I mean, besides Sega. Actually, it's kind of funny how both companies seem to leave players going, "What the hell were you thinking?" just as much as they do, "This is amazing!" So the truth is, I was still doing my long-ass Harvest Moon A Wonderful Life playthrough when I originally planned on doing this review. But I, kinda sorta lost the footage I had up until then. And then I wound up with some really bad footage I didn't want to use. And then I got lazy. This was actually supposed to be the third review, but I put it off for a long time. And why did I put it up for so long? Now I'll explain while we talk about whether or not Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City is worth the hate. So the game starts off decently enough. The title screen is actually kind of awesome. And the music is pretty catchy here. Very biohazard-y. You're given an okay amount of stuff to fiddle with, and the presentation is fairly nice. So we start up the main campaign, and oh, neat! We get to make a 4-member team out of 8 different characters. Each character represents a class of sorts. You have Lupo, the leader who is kind of tanky commando type. Beltaway, an explosives expert. Four Eyes, probably my favorite character since she can manipulate T-virus infectees to attack living targets or turn humans into zombies. Bertha, the party medic. She can use buffs or heal the party more. Vector can stealth around and avoid detection, and is apparently Hunk's protege or something, making me wonder how he's still alive since everyone always dies when working with Hunk. And Spectre, who can see things on his radar. Yeah, whoop-de-doo. Now this is a cool concept for the most part, except for a few problems. The first is, it kinda sucks that all the characters play the same. No unique stats, no difference in how they work. They're basically Mortal Kombat characters from the original games, and only differ on their skills. They even kinda look the same. Now, mind you, this is a somewhat minor issue, and I get why they did it. But don't get me started on the alternate costumes you have to buy as DLC. They're palette swaps. And yes, I do regret buying it. And to the developers' credit, they did patch it and make the partner characters' AI less stupid. Because they used to be really stupid, and now they're just pretty stupid. And therein lies another problem with the game. It was developed to be a multiplayer team-based shooter, which would be fine except there's no local co-op. Resident Evil 5, this is not. The plus side is your pudding for brain AI partners are revivable. However, there's 2 downsides to this. The first is your bean dip AI partners will never try to resuscitate one another. The second is, they can't even revive you. Seems Slant 6 Games in all their wisdom decided that if the player dies, that's it, game over, back to the last checkpoint. This in of itself isn't a bad thing per se, except when playing online, your teammates can revive you. Am I the only one who hates games that do this? It's a team-based game, and your team gets neutered if you're playing by yourself. One of the things that I super appreciated about Resident Evil 5 is that the game treats your partner the same way whether they're human or AI. You are a team. If you go into dying status, your partner will desperately try to save you, and you're expected to do the same. This rings true both online and off. Not here. Most of the time your AI partners will just barely even acknowledge your existence. Hell, they barely acknowledge anything's existence most of the time. Guys, pick up the items. Guys! Guys! To make matters worse, if they're using a shotgun, they'll do dumb things like try to fight at a distance or snipe with it. Not that they can aim to begin with. Thankfully, they do use their melee moves quite a bit. You also can't select their equipment or skills. They basically just have their default loadouts no matter what, making them pretty much just glorified meat shields. Except enemies will frequently target you first, making them poor at that too. There's no way to directly command them. You can't tell them to concentrate fire on a single target or spread out or anything. Why make a team-based game with no way to communicate with your team? Nobody in the right mind expects an AI teammate to surpass a human player, of course, but these guys are total dumbasses. They also love to just stand in front of the doorway. Now, in all fairness, it's not all bad. Your AI partners do act differently depending on who they are. Your medic will usually be the first to try to heal you when you're injured, and will even heal other party members. Four Eyes will try stuff like zombifying targets or using her stock of antivirus if you get infected, that kind of thing. Except Beltway. Beltway is useless beyond all belief. The controls are okay. Circle to melee, L1 to aim, R1 to shoot, L3 to run, X to dodge, and R2 for grenades. You can also do a melee combo that instantly kills human or zombie targets, which has a unique variation for each character. Some human targets can also melee you, though I believe there's only one situation where they can use the instant kill move. The D-pad is used for items. It works well enough, but it also feels like there should somehow be more. Oh, and you can use enemies as a shield. I actually forgot this even existed while recording footage for this. So maybe I should comment on the main campaign a little. You start off infiltrating the G-Virus lab from Resident Evil 2. Well, you're going in with Hunk. That's kind of awesome, actually. Unfortunately, the location doesn't really look like the one from Resident Evil 2 beyond some very, very light aesthetics. Where even am I? I don't remember any rooms like this. But maybe that's a little bit nitpicky. What isn't nitpicky is this game is ugly. The models all look like cheap plastic, the frame rate isn't great, and there's a shit ton of screen tearing. The environments range from kinda decent to sterile and awful. This first stage is mostly just soldiers, but there's a couple zombie dogs. And like RE2, Birkin gets shot and infects himself with the G-Virus. And... oh! I fell on my ass. Sometimes you take damage here. What? Yeah, that's actually one of the most annoying parts of this game. You take damage from scripted events. I despise when games do this. I think you can glitch out of it on occasion, but it doesn't matter where you go or what you do most of the time. You're probably gonna take damage. Sometimes you take huge amounts of it too. And yes, it can kill you. Nothing like trotting along and dying to something you didn't know was there that's literally unavoidable. This is not good game design. So you continue on your way, fighting through random mooks and the occasional zombie dog, and oh hi, Birkin. So this part is a pain in the ass. You basically just have to run away from him, except you can't immediately turn tail and run. You have to shoot him in the eye to stun him, but even this doesn't seem to work right sometimes. And don't expect your AI buddies to do much to help you most of the time. Fight a few more mooks and... oh, hello. Now in all fairness, this happens to whoever gets here first. It's just usually you if you're playing offline, though on occasion you can trick the AI into triggering this. Except as you can see here, I tricked the AI into going forward, and I got trapped by the QTE. Once you manage to dodge, you have to run away and everything starts exploding. For some reason. Oh, and the explosions you can't avoid can hurt you too. You get to a slow opening door and have to hold off Birkin in the meantime. He's gonna be stomping after you and you have to keep him stunned away from it. Good luck, because A, if he gets close enough, he can knock down your whole party, and B, if he gets even closer, he'll instantly kill your whole team. So as you can imagine, if he stuns you, you're dead. Yay! So Hunk decides the mission is incomplete and he needs to go get the G-Virus sample while you head topside. Oh, and your team is being blamed for what his side of the squad did for some reason. Mission 2 has you being sent back in, and for a moment, this almost does seem like Resident Evil. The atmosphere is decent, it looks isolated, there's bodies lying around ripped to pieces, and it feels like shit got real. It doesn't last. But you've probably noticed another issue with this game. Holy crap, it's dark and hard to see anything. Now, in all fairness, due to a mistake on my part, the footage here is a bit darker than it's supposed to be. But honestly, not by much. Even with the game's brightness set to maximum, I could barely see what I was doing in more than one spot. Now that the zombies have appeared, we also get to deal with another of the game's mechanics, a T-virus infection. While infected, you slowly lose health, and if you die, you become a zombie, which is kinda neat. Now at this point, anyone who's infected has friendly fire activated on them. You can euthanize your buddy and then immediately turn around and revive them, which is a bit funny if you kill them with a move that detaches their head or something. Let me just duct tape your head back on. It's kind of like Outbreak, except worse. If you've played Resident Evil Outbreak, then you know about that game's virus gauge and how it operated off its own thing instead of health. If you haven't played Outbreak, shame on you! It's here we find another callback to classic Resident Evil, with the secondary antagonist of Resident Evil 3, Nikolai Genovea, that asshole from Resident Evil 3. As you can see here, the Wolfpack tells him there's no safety here, and asks how the situation is. You just said there's no safety here. You know what the situation is! Are you an idiot? Reminder, I'm playing as Four Eyes. She's supposed to be the smart one. I'm not seeing it. After fighting through a wave of zombies, we come across a Spec Ops team again, and I want to touch on something here. The bullet spongy enemies. Now, zombies aren't so bad. They go down pretty easily, you can shoot off their limbs, and a well-placed headshot pops their noggin like a zit, which is pretty satisfying to be honest. Sometimes the headshot works on the human enemies. Sometimes. Other times, they'll take a year and a half to die, soaking up damage like no tomorrow, while they can absolutely obliterate your health in a short amount of time. To make matters worse, the hit detection is iffy at best, and there's very little reaction to your enemies taking damage. Even more aggravating, if you get close to kill them with a melee combo, sometimes they'll act like nothing happened and use their own melee combo, resulting in you stun-locked in a loop until you either get lucky or you die. It's not just the human enemies either. Basically anything that's not a zombie or Crimson Head is like this. Eventually, we get to a place where we find Spec Ops fighting some zombies. And I won't lie, this is a cool aspect of the game. See, zombies don't give a shit who's who. They want to munch all human giblets, so you can make enemies gang up on the human enemies if you so desire. This can be done with Four Eyes Pheromone Grenade or another mechanic called Blood Frenzy. Some guns have a high chance of making an enemy start bleeding heavily, which basically turns them into a giant sign reading zombie food. But be warned, enemies can do this to you too. Either way, it can be super satisfying to turn a bad situation around by making zombies swarm an enemy squad and watching them try to not become a buffet, or just chuck a grenade into the crowd. A little further in, we have to destroy a server, fight through more swarms, and then we're supposed to destroy some evidence in the library. And holy shit, is it dark in here! I mean, not quite as dark as pictured, but still pretty damn dark. This isn't atmospheric, it's just hard to see. For some reason, the room is booby-trapped with trip mines, which your dipshit AI will occasionally walk right into. Granted, this got patched somewhat, but there are times where they just don't pay attention. Once you destroy the evidence, you come across Nikolai again, who has now gone full villain. He makes a bunch of noise that summons a ton of lickers to you, and I can't tell if I like these guys or not. Now, don't get me wrong, in the mainline entries, I think lickers are some of the coolest, most memorable enemies in the franchise. There's the clever sound mechanics in RE2 and the pulse-pounding fights against them in RE5. Here they're bullet sponges who have the long-range grab from Resident Evil 5. They're not super annoying, but it's aggravating how much punishment they can take sometimes. They also have a tongue slap move that doesn't do much damage, but it stuns you and they love to spam it. Honestly, it's better to just destroy the landmines to grab the nearby key cards. Oh, and everything catches on fire while you're doing this, because of course it does. When you escape from the room, you'll come across another zombie swarm. Again, it's better to just run than try to fight everything here. Mission 3 opens up with your squad in the hospital, and again, this part is actually fairly enjoyable. This stage adds in bomb zombies. Okay, they're essentially just normal zombies, but they have a bomb stuck in their head that goes off when they die. Or you can just shoot the bomb directly and blow them up that way. It's a great way to clear crowds, and watching them kerplode is good family fun to boot. Of course, Nikolai decides to ruin the fun and blow up the hospital, so now you've got to dodge more fire, which is obnoxious as the hitbox for your character seems much larger than it should be. And you also have to deal with hunters. Yeah, those hunters. While they don't have their instant kill leaps, mercifully, they like to scream in your face, which knocks you down. And their jump slash can stun lock you for a ton of follow-up hits. And of course, they're probably the most bullet-spongy non-boss enemies in the game. They also have the least amount of hit feedback of any enemy, so they'll keep coming at you no matter how much you shoot at them. It's not even worth trying to use a dodge against most of their attacks because they'll recover faster than you will. Once you clear that, you wind up having to fight more swarms of spec ops and zombies. And then you fight zombies in the park while trying to find EMPs dropped from a helicopter Nikolai shot down because he's a prick trying way too hard to look like a generic action movie character. And I just gotta say it, there's way too many cases of go forward 10 steps, deal with a swarm of like 50 enemies. It thankfully is mostly zombies or spec ops, but it makes every encounter drag on, especially since neither displays any interesting abilities or intelligence. Still, this is one of the better missions in the game. Until you get to the kinda sorta boss fight with Nikolai at the clock tower. Again, he's a bullet sponge, and he either spams his rifle or he spams grenades while running back and forth, all while zombies randomly pester you. After an eternity, the game tells you to just ignore him and he runs away. Gee, how very climactic. You're sent into the nearby power plant to use the EMPs and, oh goody, more enemy swarms. Again, you have to deal with both spec ops and zombies while trying to open generators to plant the EMPs. And basically, your best bet is to just run around real fast and hope you don't die. The enemies spawn in such huge numbers that it's barely worth trying to fight them. Thankfully, the green herb drop rate seems a bit higher during this. Once you plant the third EMP, you win. Time for another shoehorned in cameo. This time it's Nemesis. This mission starts out with you fighting through swarms of zombies and spec ops in the graveyard, before making your way to a garage. After about 20 minutes, you reach a facility that I think is supposed to be the Dead Factory from Resident Evil 3, but looks nothing like it whatsoever. Apparently Nemesis is on the fritz, so you need to get another NE parasite to fix him. And of course, there's a ton of the parasites on the loose besides the one that's in a dead tyrant, which really doesn't sound accurate to the lore of the franchise. Granted, I'm not a huge lore person, but this seems a bit much even for Resident Evil. I know the game is non-canon and all, but Anyway, you extract the parasite from the tyrant, and of course he's not actually dead, so now he's trying to kill you for no real reason. And again, the game just swarms you with a billion enemies, and it's better to just run, collect the key cards, and use the terminals to escape. Are you ready for a mediocre boss fight? Well, neither was I, but I had to suffer it through it. You have to take down Nemesis to infect him with another parasite, which means, of course, he's an annoying bullet sponge. Oh, and he's got a Gatling gun. Oh god, this game takes place in the Anderson movieverse, doesn't it? And of course, this can't just be a boss fight. You have to deal with constantly respawning zombies and spec ops. It becomes a total fustercluck. The best I can suggest is just attempting to survive and putting as much attention on Nemesis as you can. Maybe putting a pheromone grenade on the spec ops team so not everyone is trying to kill you all at the same time. Once Nemesis finally goes down, you have to run down to where he is and inject him with the parasite, so hopefully you can make it without dying. Mission 5 is probably the worst part of the entire game. It starts out decently enough, even though it's more fight through crowds of zombies. You quickly make your way to the police department, which is an okay but unimpressive rendition of the familiar location. It's probably the most accurate recreation of any area in the game, but it doesn't last long. You enter from the back and make your way to Chief Iron's office, where you destroy some more evidence and fight through some zombies and lickers. And then you find out this alternate universe's Leon is an even worse driver than the main continuity one. Okay, in all fairness, this partial recreation of RE2's opening isn't that bad, except Leon and Claire look really bad. I have no idea why these models look worse than the ones in the Dark Side Chronicles, despite that being a Wii title. Now, this came out years after Resident Evil 5 and came out the same year as Resident Evil 6, both of which were stellar looking. This came out the same year as Resident Evil Revelations, a 3DS game, which has better models than this. Also, Leon has a different voice actor here for some reason. I'm not sure why Matt Mercer isn't playing the part here, given how he played the part in RE6. Here, he's voiced by Christian Lanz, apologies if I mispronounced that, who you might know as Follows Chalk from the Fallout New Vegas DLC, Honest Hearts. He's obviously trying to do well here, but he still sounds like a discount Paul Mercier, who played the part in RE4. Again, apologies if I mispronounced that name. Allison Court reprises her role as Claire, but she sounds really off in this game. I can't put my finger on it, but she either sounds absolutely dull or cartoonishly exaggerated depending on the situation. You're sent to kill Leon, who takes cover in a parking lot, and, oh goody, time for a bunch of liquors. He gets away and you fight through a bunch more spec ops, and any decency this mission has goes down the crapper here. You have to deal with a ton of zombies, hunters, and spec ops. And once you clear the area of spec ops, you have to move forward, and a capsule lands next to you, wiping out a huge chunk of your health. Of course, there's a hunter inside the capsule, and I didn't want to deal with it, so I tried running ahead. At which point it happened again. And again, this time killing me. Well, there went my grenade launcher I had been saving for the boss fight at the end of the mission, and my grenades, and my antivirus sprays. Now, in all fairness, you can see the glowing white spots where they're going to hit. Not that it really seems to matter, because if you're not facing that direction, it's gonna hit you. And there's times where, even in my footage, it's on there for maybe a fraction of a second. Either way, I'm standing my ground on this point. If you're not looking at the spot, and you aren't aware it's there, it's probably going to hit you. I only got through there by luck because I didn't even notice the glowing spot until I was reviewing the footage. I know I'm not always the most astute observer, but good grief. Even if that's not bullshit, what happened next kinda was. You eventually make it to an area with a boss battle. Now, in order to keep from getting slaughtered by a bunch of zombies after taking a hit that caused me to start bleeding, I jumped down from where I was. My whole team had been infected, so I killed them so I wouldn't have to deal with them as zombies. After clearing the area, I had no way of climbing back to revive them, but thought nothing of it as I figured triggering the boss fight would revive them, as hitting a checkpoint typically does resurrect anyone who's down. Nope, my team remained dead, beyond my reach to resurrect them, and I had to fight 2 tyrant bosses at the same time by myself. Fun! And of course, the boss battle begins with another of those unavoidable QTEs. Well, it's not quite a quick-time event, but I'm pretty sure it's unavoidable. It grabs you and tries to crush your head, and you only have a few seconds to shoot him in the face. Of course, the aiming controls are pretty crap as is, and this doesn't help, so I basically just did a sweeping motion and hoped for the best. Which did work, thankfully. I don't know if your teammates can free you, but even had my team still been alive, they probably wouldn't have. I know I died here on my first playthrough of the game because my being dead allies did nothing to help. But that was before they patched the game, so maybe they made it so they actually attempt to assist you. The actual boss fight isn't that bad, though. I managed to pick up a flamethrower, which worked pretty well to take them both down, although the hit detection is still awful. If you can get both to stand next to each other, it's fairly easy to see their moves coming, at least. I did almost die when they sandwiched me while I was picking up a green herb, but I got lucky and broke out of it. And hey, I got a trophy! 2, actually! Umbrella basically throws a hissy fit about you being unsuccessful at killing Leon, so you're sent back to Birkin's lab to kill Ada, or they won't extract you. And for all the questionable design and obnoxious gameplay up to this point, this mission is actually probably the best in the entire game. Oh sure, there's still the bland kill a billion zombies in a swarm thing, but after the first swarm, the overall stage design seems to be a bit better. Admittedly, it's not the best at explaining what you need to do. You basically need to get a little closer to Ada and make her run away. First time I did this, I thought you just had to shoot at her, and that she was a bullet sponge. Instead, you can just disarm the mines and... I said disarm the mines, not blow yourself up! Even the Spec Ops encounters are a bit better, since the area is designed with movement in mind, instead of just taking cover and taking pot shots. There's also a lot of fighting on moving elevators that occasionally needs to be restarted, but even then, it's usually fighting smaller crowds so they don't drag out as long. Even the liquor swarm isn't that bad because they trickle down in smaller numbers. There is an annoyingly slow door you have to open when you return to the area from the start of the first mission, while likely having to deal with hunters and zombies, but even that's not that bad. And then there's the boss fight. And honestly, he's fun to fight. You have to fight the mutated tyrant and knock him off the elevator twice, with a little bit of fighting in between. His attack patterns are well defined, his hit radius is actually somewhat reasonable, he has a weak point that can be exploited, but he covers every so often, and it's thrilling dodging a large enemy like that on a small platform. The only bad thing is, he can corner you if you're not careful, but That's pretty much my only gripe. Well, that and he has way too much health. It reminds me a bit of the pre-patched Resident Evil 6 bosses. Some of them were a lot of fun to fight, sure, but they dragged on to the point of absurdity. Still, despite overstaying its welcome, I actually think this is the best battle in the game. It's fun, and the stage in general is really enjoyable. If the whole game had been designed like this, I probably wouldn't be making this video now. And then we get to the final mission, which is like 70% trying to wipe out the entirety of Raccoon City's population as per the usual, while dodging Spec Ops fire. The actual stage design is decent, and it's fun chasing after Leon and Claire in what's one of the game's shortest stages, mercifully. There's a lot of trip mines, and they can be both helpful and a detriment depending on how you handle things, adding to the quality of the mission. But there are gripes. First, there's some of that randomly scripted damage again. I don't think you can ever avoid this explosion, and it will always cause you to bleed. Second, I was at nearly full health and a pretty damn good distance away, and then I'm just dead? Third, the last part is just a swarm of zombies and a swarm of Spec Ops in absurd numbers. Now, to its credit, it's kind of clever the game has you inflict blood frenzy on a Spec Ops soldier so the zombies will break through the barricade, and I think Four Eyes Pheromone Grenade also works. I like this idea, and wish there was more stuff like that. Of course, instead of trying to fight the enemies, you can just run past them once the barricade is down, as long as you have health to do so, which I actually recommend as Leon's sniping at you the whole time. Get up the ladder and... Leon, how did you get so injured? I didn't even shoot at you. After the hilariously bad cutscene, you get the game's infamous choice that allows you to change history. You can choose to kill Leon or spare him. Now, I'm not sure how this works online, but offline your team is split, and you have to kill the other two team members. If you choose to kill Leon, then you also have to take him down. And he's, of course, a bullet sponge. Basically, the other members are more durable Spec Ops soldiers. There's a few zombies around, and they actually don't respawn, but you can use them to your advantage. You can also use the instant kill melee attacks against your former comrades, but I'm not sure I'd recommend it, as they can actually do the same to you. They aren't too hard either way, but be warned, you can't revive your teammate if they die during this fight, and your former comrades still have all of their abilities, meaning stuff like Vector can cloak against you, so be careful. Leon is just super durable, even though a moment ago he was coughing up his lungs. And that's the end. Yeah, that's the final encounter. It's disappointing to say the least, considering the mutated tyrant boss at the end of the last mission was pretty exciting. If you kill Leon, then the game ends with you shooting Claire and cutting to black. And that's it. No epilogue. No, oh shit, history is completely altered ending. Nothing. Just credits. Of course, being the nice guy I am, I replayed the stage so I could show you the other ending. Same stuff, except Leon will help you out. And upon completion, the audio bugged out on me. There's supposed to be a conversation with your character basically giving Umbrella the middle finger, but none of the voices or subtitles appeared until they started talking to Leon. And then it ends. Again, no epilogue whatsoever. The weirdest thing is how unfinished this game feels. It comes off as really incomplete, but I don't believe it was particularly rushed. I think it's just poorly managed and wasn't very well tested. I haven't even suffered the plethora of bugs many other players have, with the worst that I've encountered being the previously mentioned audio glitch during the ending. You'll also note that I didn't touch on the game's versus mode, and that's because it just wasn't very much fun, and I didn't even bother to go and try playing it again. Last time I tried, it felt horribly unbalanced. It could just be that I suck at it, but I swear shooting at an enemy at point-blank range with a shotgun a half dozen times did nothing, while they could shoot me with a pea shooter 3 times and kill me with ease. What I will cover is the DLC. Or at least the free episode, because if you think I'm putting more money into this game, you're out of your goddamn mind! Indeed, half the game is sold as DLC. That's not a joke. Before Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle hid half its cast behind a paywall, Capcom was hiding half of its main game behind $20 of DLC. And unlike Cross Tag Battle's $40 price tag, this was sold as a fully priced $60 game. The DLC episodes have you taking the role of a Spec Ops team, and to their credit, they do have their own missions and maps. Sadly, I don't know if this was cut from the main game to sell as DLC, but it seems likely, as it looks like it went on sale just a month after the game did, and that is not okay. The Spec Ops Echo 6 team is comprised of DA, Willow, Harley, Party Girl, Shona, and Tweed. The Spec Ops team are really just reskins of the Wolfpack, unfortunately. There's nothing unique about them, and they seem to have even less personality, at least based off the first mission. Admittedly, the free mission isn't too bad. It's about on par with the Wolfpack's first mission up until... Hi, Cameo! Yeah, it's Jill Valentine. I think. The face is even worse than it was in Revelations, holy crap. And while I like Michelle Ruff as a voice actress, she was so horribly miscast as Jill. Sorry, but the Yukari Takeba voice just seems weird coming from her. I still think you're a great VA, though. So we basically get a random classy fanservice shot of Jill's chest as she runs away from the Nemesis, who's also here for a cameo. He throws a buzz at her, and apparently she went to the Prometheus school of running away from things. You wind up having to defend Jill, which means shooting and smacking Nemesis before he can pull her too close with his tentacle, and then running away from yet another huge cluster of zombies until she knocks down a fire escape. Shortly after, you have to play sniper from a rooftop and defend another Spec Ops team of 10 members. The problem is, you don't have the best angle to attack from, so you have to just hope he can chase Nemesis off and kill the Umbrella soldiers remaining. At least you don't have to protect all of them, just some of them. Eventually you wind up in a boss fight against Nemesis, which is essentially the same one as before, except without the respawning mooks. Minus him being a bullet sponge, the battle is actually okay here as he chases you around with a minigun and shit explodes around you. Without a billion other things trying to kill you at the same time, you can actually focus on the boss. So the free mission was okay, but nowhere near good enough to make me buy the rest of the missions. Which means, of the game's 7 standard missions and the free DLC mission, I'd say only half are even worth playing. That's not a good number. There's also not much in the way of replay value. You can upgrade skills, but you can basically just stick to one gun as there's typically a best gun of each type, and they're relatively easy to afford. There's no alternate costumes, just the palette swap DLC, and it's not worth it. There is a gallery mode full of concept art and such, and some of that stuff is pretty neat, but not worth the purchase price. And it doesn't even require playing through the entire game to unlock, just replay the first stage and grab the data discs and such. Woo! Excitement. I won't say the game was devoid of fun or anything, but it's not what I'd call a good game. I wouldn't even call it mediocre. But is it worth the hate it gets? Yeah, pretty much. By the time I finished recording the footage for this review, I was glad to be done with it. The core gameplay is pretty bland, especially given that RE5 was already out, RE6 came out around the same time, and Revelations also dropped in the vicinity with its raid mode, all with superior co-op despite generally being 2 players instead of 4. Playing online does mitigate some of the gripes, but that requires finding other people who actually want to play this. While I've calmed down after the absurdity with the Hunter capsules landing on my head, though I still retain my stance that they're bullshit, it doesn't make up for the other moments of scripted damage. It also doesn't help the game is clunky. Even aiming feels weird. Why is there a crosshair and an aiming laser? Why is it sometimes the crosshair is where you're aiming, and sometimes it's the laser? Why is it so inconsistent? If anything, I think I actually hate the game more now than I did when I first started this review months ago. And the game's performance is just pitiful, at least on the PS3. There's horrific screen tearing, which seems to also be present in the 360 version, and the frame rate just feels chunky in particular. And while I haven't encountered them, there's apparently quite a few bad glitches where enemies don't spawn so the next event can't trigger, or players fall through the floor. I can't comment on the PC version either, but I haven't heard good things there. I say stay far away from Operation Raccoon City. There's good concepts here, but there's very little that's well executed, and not a lot of appeal to replaying it. It's not the worst game in the franchise, but I'd recommend just about any other game in the series over this. Not that one! No, I'm not gonna review that. You couldn't pay me to play Resident Evil Gaiden again. Thank you guys so much for watching. Agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments. If you're hungry for more Resident Evil stuff, there's certainly no shortage on this channel, with many playthroughs, including some co-op fun and much better games with my buddy Shads.